Hello YouTube, welcome back to my bookcase where there is no title screen and no music and we do all this in one shot. So I am going to do a review and I'm going to put the time code that starts below if you want to skip to it. But first I want to talk a little bit about the subject of adding water to spirits. Ralphie Mitchell of Ralphie Stuff fame on YouTube did a perfectly good video on this 10 years ago, which doesn't need a lot of updating, but it was devoted to Scotch malt whiskey, and I thought I would, do a little spin on it by basically doing the same thing with other spirits. So, water to whiskey, or water to anything. Now the thing is, there's still some circles where if you mention this, you kind of get the reaction, oh, well, why would you add water to your spirit? Are you wimp? Are you wussy boy? What's wrong with you? The people that have that reaction don't tend to realize that pretty much everything they're drinking has already been watered down at the factory, right? So, if they're drinking, if you're drinking, something bottled at 40% alcohol, that is not exactly the same thing as trying to drink something neat when it's, up in the 60s. So on the one hand, that there is a sort of, just getting the spirit down to a point where it's comfortable. But I don't think that's even the main reason why you would want to add water to spirit. So I've got some examples I'm going to run through for the review. The main rule. The main limiting factor on adding water to spirit is you must not drown it. There is a point past which, if you continue adding water, water to spirit, where after a certain point, it just stops holding together. You stop having a sort of unified character, and you start getting, just kind of a watery mess of flat characteristics. You'll know it when you experience it. That tends to happen somewhere south of 40%, maybe 38%. Anywhere you're around that range, you're sort of getting into the danger zone. So that's the general rule. If you're adding water, don't drown it. Whatever you do, because if you try to just add more booze out of your bottle to increase the strength again, you can never really get it back that way. I don't exactly know why. So first two examples, I got myself a bottle of Cruzan Single Barrel, which is a pretty standard Cuban style mass-produced column distilled rum, and I got myself a bottle of Brora in 1982 that I opened up for a special occasion. So very different spirits. This is bottled at 40%. This is bottled at 43, so slightly stronger. So as a general rule, if something is bottled weaker, you give it less water. If something is bottled older, if it's an older spirit, if it's spent more time in barrel, or in special cases, if it's spent a lot of time in glass. So, older spirits that have been around since like the 50s or 60s, kind of the same rules start to apply. But, so I got my two very different spirits here. I've got my Cruzan and I got my Brora. Not a top shelf Brora, but still good. Let me give you a little bit of a preview before I add water. Okay, Cruzan. Initial nose is very oaky, and kind of a maple syrup thing. And then kind of flat neutral alcohol on the palate. Sort of the same. Okay, arrival. Lots of oaky, vanilla-y stuff, and then it's just kind of a, industrial alcohol. It fades towards the back. Not my favorite style, but perfectly good for what it is. It's nice that I don't think they've added sugar to this, so that's a huge plus. And the Brora, let me drink a water. Okay, obviously I like this better because one of the great distilleries of the world. This is not Brora's best years. This 82 is towards the end. but you're still getting, it's very fruity actually. So stone fruit, apple above all. Um, Very mineral actually. This something about this reminds me of like a Chablis. A little hint of wax in there, but it's very tight and on the palate. Kind of the same thing. Um, Apples, a little peach, um, flintiness, but it's also actually quite bitter. It's kind of undefined bitterness going on in there. I'm not going to review this because you can't get any more, and there's really no point. So, according to the rules I just gave you, less water if it's near 40%, less water if it's older. Again, this is 40 and 43. I'm going to give them the exact same amount of water. I'm going to give this 2 or 3 drops. Let's say 2. And I'm going to give this 2 or 3 drops. If this was bottled at 40%, I would consider giving it maybe a drop, maybe not even that much. Okay, so why do this? Why, this isn't really enough to water it down, to sort of tone down any intensity. Why add water in literally drops? Well, the main reason you would want to add water to a spirit isn't to water it down, it's to kind of wake it up. Alcohol is a solvent. All of these bottles are basically sort of very complex solutions that are holding in lots of flavors and stuff. Sorry. And when you add even just a little drop of water or two, you're disrupting the solution, right? You're kicking up lots of new flavors that come out that, when it was watered down in the factory, but they can also come out, if you're adding the water yourself. So those can be good things, those can be bad things. But, they kind of tell you the truth about what you're drinking, if I can put it that way. If something bad is coming out of your spirit, that's important. That's useful to know. So I'm going to go back to my Cruzan, and then I've added some water. The wood's coming out a little bit more. It comes out, it's not sawdusty, but, you're getting more brown sugar. Not quite molasses. Yeah, I'm going to go with I'm still going to go maple syrup. The alcohol isn't coming through as much now, but on the palate, yeah, that's pretty common with this style. When you add water with this style of, industrial distilled rum, often there's a kind of alcohol-y bitterness that comes out on the back, like it's a newspapery sort of bitterness, which kind of tends to give this style away. So that's an indication that if you're going to drink this neat, maybe you don't need to add water, and maybe you shouldn't be buying it. But if it's your thing, enjoy. So that's the Cruzan. Adding water doesn't really improve it, and even makes some sort of nastier notes come out on the palate. To my Brora, it's kind of just exploded on me. Much more fruity now. Yeah, some pear coming out, some Bosque pear, a little bit of wax, actually a lot of wax on the palate. Okay, most of the woodiness, or the bitterness, I'm sorry, has now resolved into a kind of mixture of old wood and a kind of spicy, sugary note, which is associated with wood. It's much more pleasant now, actually. And if I left this sitting here for the next 20 minutes or so, it would continue to develop on me. And that's just kind of the nature of old spirits. They don't take a lot of water, but give them a little bit of time, and then they sort of start talking to you a little bit more. One more try with this. So forget about watering down. That's the main reason why you add water to a spirit. It's just to open it up a little bit. Now, there are other spirits where I would say the only reason you would add water is to water it down. Like here's this Don Fulano that I reviewed a little while back. I love this stuff, but one quirk about it is even though it's at 100 proof or so, adding water doesn't really seem to make it develop at all. So this is, here it is. Yeah, agave and just like this, the most delicious lime candy ever made. It is a little bit hot though. I know from experience that adding water isn't going to really develop this at all, but 2 squirts will bring it down to a sipping strength that makes it a little bit more comfortable for me. I like around 40-45%, somewhere in there. Same thing, just a little bit more drinkable. Again, add too much and this will drown, so you don't want to do that. But this is kind of the opposite case from these two, where you're just adding water to get a little bit of a reaction, a little bit of, just shake them up a little bit. This is entirely, you're adding water just entirely to, get it to a strength where it's a little bit more comfortable on your palate. Okay, so that's those 3. What about the case of adding water where, those 2 things come together? So this is the kind of thing that the why would you add water to your spirit kind of guys never consider. This is a cast strength overproof rum from Jamaica, bottled by Stolen. This is something where it's not just that it's this is what, 123 proof, 61.5% alcohol. So at that strength, like your tongue's just being anesthetized when you taste this stuff. You're not going to be able to get a good reading on what's going on if you're trying it, especially if you're trying a lot neat. Even a little sip is going to be a lot. But on the other hand, the character of the spirit, and I'll talk about more in a second, is such that it will actually improve and develop as you add water to it. And the fact that they bottled it overproof means that there's more flavor to come out. That's why you spend your extra money on these kinds of bottlings. And I want the rest of this video to be a kind of case in point of that. So what is this exactly? So Stolen is an independent bottler from Chicago, which is where I am. And somehow they were able to get a hold of 5,000 cases of this stuff. So this is, if you read their little notes, annoyingly, they say it's, the possessive version of it's with an apostrophe, which is really annoying for me. Points off for that. I teach for a living. I'm supposed to be watching out for this kind of thing. But if you read it, basically what they're telling you with as broad a set of hints as they possibly can manage is that this is a 6-year-old Hampden Estate bottled with natural color and with no extra sugar added. And they mentioned that it's very strong and not to leave it near open flame. No smoking. So I've talked about Hampden before. Let me just, by the way, you can notice I've been enjoying this. I have a couple of bottles of this saved for posterity. Oh, what the hell? There's the rest of the bottle there. Okay. So, the thing about Hampden is this is a huge spirit, right? If you're trying this neat, it's just bamboozling. I mean, it's just a confusion in a glass. There's tons and tons of stuff going on. This is a case in point where I'm gonna try it neat. I suggest you try it neat as well, very gently. But you're not going to be able to get a good sense of what the hell's going on in this stuff unless you add a little bit of water and give it some time. Okay, but for initial tasting notes, okay, so the giveaway on Hampden for me is cherry cola, and there's tons of cherry cola, more cola than cherry, as opposed to the Overproof white. Vanilla, lots of vanilla, lots of oak. My suspicion is that this is mostly first and second fill barrels, so very fresh still. Some like burning tires in there. Okay, on the palate, huge. So sort of vanilla bean, vanilla ice cream mixed with, yeah, like ripe and unripe bananas together, that cherry cola thing, and just a zillion different little flavors running around, too quick to really sort of get a handle on it. So I'm going to add some water to this. Let's say 5 squirts. 3, 4, 5. So I'm doing this both to make it comfortable to drink, and to just be able to give it, kick it open and see what it's got. That's about right. Okay. So, think about this bottle, right? I'm sure there's a funny story about how they got a hold of 5,000 cases of Hampden 6-year-old, and I would love to hear that story sometime. But I'm glad they did. I mean, this is like south of $20. If it was the full bottle, it would be $40 or something like that for an aged Hampden. Now, its competition in this is, of course, going to be Rum Fire, which I reviewed a while back. This is amazing, too. This also needs lots of water. What I will say in advance is this comes across as more funky to me than this does. I'm not sure if it's because it's a different mark. It could be. I'm not sure. But I think it's also the oak mellowing the spirit down. So let's go back to this, having given it, a minute's rest. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm kind of figuring out where I am. Okay. The cherry cola is still there, but there's also now some like fermenting vegetables. The vanilla note, little brown sugar, olives and tar, and unripe banana, more banana peel than actual bananas. I think the esters on here have like a physical force to them. But then there's like some pound cake, and what is that? Like a pineapple, but not like the fruit, more like the shell. Like if you were to like smell the inside of a pineapple after you took the fruit out. The water is really bringing out the pepper too, and the sweetness. A little brine, kind of black olives. A little bit of like a woody, like if the like pencil sharpeners when you were in grade school, and you would sometimes open up the bottom where all the shavings were, and you would like dump it on the ground and throw it. There's a little bit of this sort of like pencil shavings note in here. Yeah, this is good. On the palate, still huge, but I can tell what's going on now. God, this is one of the best spirits in the world, Hampden. Fruit, the banana thing I mentioned before, but also you're getting more brine, more olives, more brown sugar, A little sort of coconut cream, vanilla essence, a little licorice too, black licorice. A lot of wood spices going on, plantains, um, kind of like an old book, an old dusty old book. If you dunked it underwater and got it like soaked, and it was just wet and damp, kind of like a vanilla ice cream if you just smothered it in olives somehow. I don't know. I mean, this is just tons and tons of things going on. But along with the hand and spirit, like it's being met with the wood and particularly like a wood sugar and a wood tannin thing. The Hampden signature from the Rum Fire is still there. The fruity, funky thing is still there, but the wood has kind of softened and sort of smudged that a little bit. This is, I mean, okay, funk. If we can establish a sort of absolute scale of funk, starting from, Tigermilk, Bell and Sebastian, no detectable funk, up to Miles Davis, Dark Magus, sort of levels of funk dangerous for human consumption. Like this is like Prince 1999 territories of funk. This is more like Prince Sign of the Times levels. So it's kind of similar, but it's a little older, a little more mellowed. We've kind of traded in some of that original raw funk for maybe something a little bit more refined. Yeah, God, it's good though. There's a part of me that's been playing around with white rum for long enough that I almost want to be contrary and say that I like this better. But I mean, you're losing something in transition from here to here with the oak. But there's also just a deliciousness factor and sort of, secondary and tertiary qualities that are starting to crawl in. So I scored this an 88. I'm going to give this an 88 plus out of 100. So it's a little bit better, and just very, very different in terms of how it comes across. The thing that would rock my world, it feels like, Jesus, that's big, would be like, okay, take this, put it in less active barrels, like maybe not first and second fill barrels. Maybe we're talking like third and fourth, and just give it another 6 years. Make it a 12-year-old in less active wood, and should be up there with the greats. It still already is kind of up there with the greats. I mean, it's just this is a benchmark. I mean, very long finish, just goes on forever. Yeah, 88 plus. Do not try this without being ready to add water to it. And if somebody complains that you're being a wuss, you can kind of shut them up by making them try it neat. Thank you very much. I hope that this has been informative for you. And